What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The celestial compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Beal. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Beal.
Greetings, Earthlings. This is Kathy Beal welcoming you to another spin of the Celestial Compass. We're going to be talking about moon magic today, but I want to start first with a brief update of the December forecast. And remember, you'll find the entire forecast at omtimes.com and also at my site, empowermentunlimited.net. Now, this is going to be a focused, intense, and selective holiday season. It doesn't mean that you won't be busy, but with Venus in Scorpio and several other aspects that play into that, you will find that you're going to be choosing value and meaning over running around and doing everything in sight. So you may still be extremely busy, but there's more of a connection and a deepening of going into the experiences. The big event of the month is that we have the last Mercury retrograde of the year. It starts on the 13th and it takes us into 2024. And the thing to note about this is that Mercury starts out in the sign of Capricorn, which is very earth-oriented, practical, with an impact on what actually happens down here on Earth. And as it slides back briefly into Sagittarius, which happens the day before Christmas Eve here in the Northern Hemisphere, it will go into very likely some situations that you may have not really taken seriously when they came around first time. So know that Mercury retrograde means, as usual, stuff doesn't happen on the schedule that you might intend. Pad your schedule, allow extra time. Don't assume that you and somebody else in a conversation have the same dictionary for the words that you're using. You could be saying the same things, but have completely different internal meanings or assumptions. So clarity, specificity, and taking advantage of opportunities to go back over old business, finish things, tie up loose ends, always great for end of the year. Clean up stuff, get it off your desk, because by the very end of the month, there will be a soft and nostalgic holiday atmosphere coming back. But for now, let's talk about the moon. And it is, of course, Moon Day as we do this. And our guest today is someone that I met because of her association with the moon. Lorraine Henrich is dedicated to restoring world peace and spiritual community through sacred ceremony and magical arts. Since the age of 3, she has been consciously connected to the world of spirit through dreamtime, astral travel, and visions. She has been initiated as a Celtic shaman, Wiccan High Priestess, ceremonial master, and Magus Hermeticus, and has shared goddess teachings and sacred ceremony throughout the United States and all over the world. She offers teachings about a vast variety of topics, including oracle training, goddess archetypes, shamanism, esotericism and the Tree of Life. She is the founder of the Lilith Circle of Light, an open circle for sacred ceremony and training in elemental mastery. And what her official bio does not mention is she is also the lunar queen at the lunar fair night market that I am always posting about. So if any of you follow me on social media, you have been seeing many, many things about that. So welcome, Lorraine.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I really enjoy your astrology. It was really good to listen to that, and I just love your presence, especially at the Lunar Fair. So it's great to be here.
Thank you so much. Would you tell us a little bit about how the moon became important to you? Because I have the feeling she has been for a long time.
Yeah, she has. She follows me everywhere, and ever since I was a kid, I really, you read the biography. I was really connected to being outside, as many kids are, but I was especially fascinated with the night and the moon. And, I still remember being, a kid. I was probably 5 or 6 years old and, dressing up in a big black dress that I had up in we had up in our attic. We had some of my grandmother's clothes and, pretending I was the moon. So that
okay.
I would love to be the moon. And not only, but I also, I didn't leave the sun out. I liked the sun. I would sing to the sun and I would be the moon. And of course, there's a relationship between the two anyway. So I would say, as I was reflecting on the moon today, on Moon Day, I was thinking about that. And that's probably when it started, when I was a kid. And I just really enjoyed lunar type of activities. I really was, and I still am, quite an introvert. I really enjoyed contemplation, and that reflective nature of the moon was very much my nature. So I spent a great deal of time, even when I was a kid. I would love to go into, I was a weird kid. I like to go into trance. I could, focus on a candle flame and take myself different places. And I had a very active dream time. So that I would say that was the beginning of it all.
Did you have any specific training related to this, or does your training extend to other areas?
Oh, I totally did. That was when I was older. I mean, this was, like the age of 5, 6, 7. And then, I spent up into my 20s, I would say that I tried to lead a normal life. I wasn't really normal. I had a lot of psychic abilities and a lot of desire to do something with them. So I had taken a trip out to Sedona, Arizona, and I think it was in 97, and I had a very big awakening, and I experienced the divine feminine, and that to me is the moon, and I felt such love and acceptance and this beautiful energy that I had never felt in any formal experiences I had in worship, in the religion I grew up in. When I was young, I loved ritual. I just didn't really enjoy going to church. So I would memorize, what the priest would say and think, I would love to be up there doing that. But of course, in the religion I was raised in as a woman, you could never go up there and do that. But I wanted that. And so when I got older and I had that experience of the divine feminine embracing me, in Sedona, I knew that I had to find a way. I had to train and learn more about my spirit and some of the things that I always could do quite naturally. And so at that age, I started formally training within many moons, a training in not only Wicca and some esoteric training, but also I trained in other countries. I actually did a beautiful trip, a couple of them, out to Palenque out to Mexico and worked with a Mayan shaman who was showing all of us how to connect with the moon, because, you know, in those ancient, it's very lunar. And so me, as he trained us, you know, to understand how everything is lunar and everything's connected to the moon. And so, even though I trained a lot in Western esotericism, it's a very structured thing I was doing. I was also studying, you know, the mysteries, and I had great teachers who, and, you know, showing me how to test within that, the esoteric nature of anything.
And I'm going to interrupt here for just a minute because you are cutting in and out and becoming just a little tinny. I don't know if there's anything about the location of your phone that you can adjust.
Let me adjust. Let me just see if I can adjust, and this will make it better. Hold on. I can do that.
Now you're sounding good. Now you're sounding good. So it does sound like you have had training in a lot of different places, places
Yes.
that many of us people up here in the United States don't often get to.
Yes. And you know, what happened to me was that wasn't really my plan. I did plan on you know, getting my college degree, getting a corporate type of a job once I realized that teaching wouldn't pay a lot. And I had gotten my bachelor's as a teacher. And, you know, I had a little bit of a crisis in my early 30s because I realized I just couldn't do that life that I had planned for myself. And so I did a lot of soul searching. I was at Virginia Beach with a group of women. We went kayaking, and I just had this amazing time connecting with the moon. And at the end of it all, I knew I had to leave my, you know, my corporate job. And I never looked back. I had already been doing healing and teaching, you know, prior to that decision. I had a foundation doing alternative healing and all of those things. And so I left that job, I believe it was 2002, and I've never looked back ever since then. My job, if you want to call it that, is ceremony and healing and helping people to connect to their magic through the moon and other ways.
So let's just focus on the moon for a bit here. As an astrologer, and I think many astrologers, probably most, use the moon for timing. It's a really good way to mark cycles, and we look at the new moon as planting a seed or beginning a cycle, and the quarter moon as a time of growth, and the full moon as a time of fruition and harvest. And then the next quarter moon is a time of release, and the dark moon is a time of being fallow. And the signs that the moon is moving through color each of these possibilities. Tell us about your tradition and your training, because it is there's a different flavor to how I have seen you working with it.
Well, you know, the concepts that you're talking about are the same in that way that they that the moon is always present for us to celebrate and honor in the different phases, because the phases of the moon mark the passage of time, and they also they are markers in our own lives. And the more deeply we connect with the moon, the more consciously we connect with the moon, the more ability that we have to work with the side of it that encourages evolution and growth. Just as we use the moon to determine when to plant crops, when to harvest crops, you know, there's also this component of working with the moon, not using the moon, but collaborating with the moon to create and manifest. And so, you know, I'll just say a couple simple things.
Go ahead, please.
at the different moon phases, that you described, we prepare to meet the moon ritualistically. So, based on where the moon is going to be in the sky would determine how we prepare to meet the moon. So, you're going to use symbology and your senses, because the moon controls tides and we are mostly water. So we have this inner relationship with that, and we can cultivate that by, simple things like wearing certain oils that are connected to where the moon is in the sky. We can play music that connects us to the energies that the moon is displaying based on where it is in the year. As we're going through that 13 moon cycle, which is such a divine feminine name, number. And, we prepare for the moon, we show up for the moon. And then rather than doing, we mentioned ritual, and ritual is something you do regularly. So in a way, I've been doing moon rituals for a long time now, because they're regular, but it's really more ceremonial because it's unique to where the moon is in the sky. And it's unique to what we are going through when we approach the moon. So wherever the moon is in the sky, when you connect and you prepare yourself for that connection, and not only do you work with that celestial energy, but you also call in the elements, and they all intertwine with each other. This is when we can use the moon and work and collaborate with the moon to create or to release something. So it's not just about the crops, it's about us. And that's, how we do a spell. We can do, under the moon, we can do personal magic. And when we gather as a group, it's super cool because then we can do something that's collective, which means that whatever we're doing under the moon, whatever the ceremony is, it flows out into the universe, and each of us represents, almost as though we're stars in the sky, we each represent an element or component to that spell. So it becomes bigger than just me, working on releasing or manifesting something.
And you pay attention, because I notice when you have your different moon ceremonies, you pay attention to the name of the moon, not just the sign, but the name of it.
Yeah, because the name of the moon represents especially a marker of time, right? Because if you think about the repetitive nature of, how the moon cycles through new and full phases, you actually experience, if you're working with both the new and full moon, you're going to work with the astrology in different ways on different levels at different times of the year. It doesn't just show up once. But the moon itself, the unique name of the moon indicates that particular season. And so it's not only about, the astrology and what that represents. It's also about where we are in preparation for the season that we're in. For example, we just had the frost moon. That was our last moon, and it was all about, okay, it's getting cold. If we were farmers, we would have had done all of our preparations so we'd have enough food to last us into the cold months. And that frost moon was really a time to celebrate the warmth of the hearth because of where it sat in the season. And a lot of magic is very much based on the land and the relationship that we have to, in North America, it gets cold in the winter. That might be different somewhere else.
And you also work in herbs and stones, I've noticed.
Yes, because this is all part of the elemental component of the moon. So when the moon, for example, is in a season, the seasons are represented, I'm using Celtic references because there are different systems of elements, which is why, if you go on my Instagram post about preparing, if you're not going to be present with me and everybody else, I don't tell you how to call in the elements because there's different systems. So this is a Celtic system. And the way we work with it is that each season represents an element and a direction. So we have that component, and we also have the astrology, which represents a certain element. So if you want to do the highest level of ritual and magic, you want to take those correspondences and work with them appropriately because they're going to have even more power under that moon. So, for example, we've got a new moon in Sagittarius coming up, which is the fire sign. So no matter what we do, that fiery energy is going to be there. And, it's a new moon. So, of course, that's solar also. So we're going to work with, the assets of that and incorporate that into the materials we choose for that particular spell.
And you say the word spell, so for people who are not familiar with this, there are actual physical objects that people use in ceremony, and doing things with herbs is one of them. And you have actually, I should probably back up and just explain. You lead ceremony not just with your coven, but you lead ceremony in public in a huge regular space for a large portion of the year. All right. Now, there's so much I want to ask about this. The challenge of working in an open ceremony. I have very strong feelings about this because of my previous experience that we've talked about, and I am in awe of your being able to pull this off without rogue elements coming and disrupting.
Okay.
So you prepare in a different way when you're doing something out in public.
Absolutely. So, just to back up myself, which I did not mention, once I really started my training, I realized one of my purposes and my mission in life is to bring ceremony out into the world. And I've had visions of doing ceremonies in stadiums before. And it's not that it's never been done. Look at the Eleusinian mysteries and the ancient initiatory rites that would be done as festivals that everybody would attend, at different times of the year, depending on where you were, whether you were in Greece or Egypt or somewhere like that. And to me, that old energy, of course, we need to shift because we're not the same people that we were then, but that magic is, to me, it's one of the ingredients we need for evolution to happen on this planet. So there's got to be a way to bring that out into the public. So, I have come from a background of a lot of gatekeeping. I believe in gatekeeping. I do. But I also find there's a way to make a ceremony without diluting the energy in the least. Something that's approachable for people that may have been doing ceremony for a really long time and they'll get the nuances, or somebody who just shows up because they feel like they want something, and their ordinary experience of life or whatever they're going through is not meeting some need that they have within. It's like a calling to be present, even though they don't exactly know what it is. So, what we do is myself and my coven, whoever's able to come, I don't expect them to show up every 2 weeks. They do have lives outside of the ceremonies, but we prepare the energy. We ask for, the blessings. We make sure we have a relationship with the land. We leave offerings. We do all kinds of preparation on the land. So the land is prepared for the ceremony. And, what I also notice is that all the people that are meant to be there are there. There are people that show up completely not knowing they're going to be there. There are people that think they're going to come and somehow they don't get there. And to me, the universe is the gatekeeper for open ceremony. And so, everybody brings an ingredient that they're meant to. And it all contributes to a greater piece to the puzzle that we work on whenever we're a collective. So, there's a saying, we're only as strong as our weakest link. What we do is we create literally a platform to elevate everyone so that when we have that short time we have together in actual ceremony, we're all, on this platform of the elements connecting to the moon in whatever phase that she is in.
And this occurs, at least the ones that I have experienced or been on the periphery of, this occurs in the middle of a big fair area every couple of weeks in a different location in northern New Jersey. Lunar Fair is a night market, a witches' night market that has several places that it frequently goes back to, but it's not in a consistent location every 2 weeks. It moves around, and it is during the easier weather to be around, spring into Halloween, right? Yeah. So you can be just wandering around through vendors' booths and hear something going on and see a bunch of people in a circle with rope lights on the ground and hear somebody talking through a microphone, and that will be what this is.
Yeah, it's like the Eleusinian Mysteries and a speakeasy going on, and like a 60s rock show, all happening at once, right? And that's what makes it unique, too, because the ceremony is only one piece, but the ceremony, and the work we do before we open creates a foundation of magic that radiates out everywhere, but there's also a boundary, that little string of lights that represents the boundary where we're actually doing the inner ceremonial work. And then outside of that circle, we just radiate that energy. So whatever the intention is, I call them the lunar chicks. They have a part in that. They help decide what is the intention going to be for the particular moon, because they're working with all the other movable parts that I'm not. I'm primarily focused on the ceremonial aspect and the magical foundation that we create through that ceremony. Not to mention all the magic that the vendors and everybody else brings.
It's just kind of like magic on the hoof. All right, this is a good place for us to take a break.
Yeah.
Hang on, people. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for inspired conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Want help with your own celestial compass? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, for Astro Insight forecasts for each week, month, and new and full moon. Want to explore the personal impact? Make a decision? Understand another person? It is possible. Click the Services tab to book a personal session with me. That address again? empowermentunlimited.net.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing
a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Celestial Compass. We are talking about moon magic with Lorraine Henrich, who is a Celtic shaman, Wiccan High Priestess, and known to me as the Lunar Queen. Going back granularly, I can't say that word. Let's go to some detail here about ceremony. Now, many people who follow astrology will look at a new moon as a time that maybe you write some intentions down on a piece of paper, fold them, stick them under a candle, stare at the candle, and then at the full moon, you write stuff you want to get rid of, burn the paper. What you do is massive high church. Massive high church. So for you, a ceremony has an altar, just for starters. How do you assemble the altar?
Well, and I want to add one thing. I forgot to mention before, we're also on Instagram, right?
Oh,
and
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because, we'll get to that then. But,
Right.
As far as assembling the altar, there's always a foundation. And I mentioned this on the, I always post how can you prepare? We're going to be on Patreon. We're going to be going on Patreon soon, but I always have what you can do to prepare. And so ours is a little more elaborate at Lunar Fair, but basically we want all the elements represented because we are all of those elements. And, each element represents an aspect of us. So we could say that earth is our physical body, water is our emotional body, air is our intellectual, divine inspiration coming from the mind, fire is our vision and our passion. Fire is love. Spirit is love. And so we want to have all of those there on the altar because we're saying, we're literally putting ourselves on the altar, and we're also doing something pleasing for the moon. We're making an above and below connection. So we can say that the altar is the conduit for the energies to flow into our circle. And so we want to make sure that, it's beautiful and abundant because especially, if we're asking for the blessings of the moon, we want to make sure that we are showing our gratitude and love for the moon and for the ceremony. So we build the altar, and it has some foundational pieces like the elements. But, then it's got moving pieces because we're always going to be working with different components that are connected to that particular moon. Maybe deities, maybe animals, maybe we'll have a lot of candles on there, or maybe we'll have an extra amount of dragon's blood that we're burning on there. And this is the part. And then we usually have a sub altar, which is because we have so much stuff on the big altar. When we do our spell, we always share a part of that experience with everybody. Brings home a physical piece. And you brought that up before. One of the things that we do in our, and everything is physical while we are physical. While we are here in our we're spirit and physical body. So, essentially we use a ritual or a ceremony to anchor spiritual energy into our physical body in order that we can elevate, evolve, ascend, and whatever other intention we hold. And this is for us individually, but it's also collective when we come together. So, the altar is a reflection of the cosmic nature of our, of our focus, and also the personal nature of our focus.
And you have instructions for prep work before people show up. Okay, and we'll mention this again at the end, but just for those who are wondering, there is a physical location where people can actually take part, at least when the fair is actually running. But whether or not you are anywhere near it, there's always a live stream on Instagram. And if you follow Lorraine on Instagram at Lunar Queen with an E at the end of Queen, you will get the advance posts of when the live stream is going to be and specific instructions, usually several slides worth, of
Yes.
actions to take to prepare for it and ways to start thinking about it.
Yes, yes, yes. We have and I try to make that as generic as possible because people have different belief systems, and this is not it's not a religion or a dogmatic form of practice. Moon magic is always very intuitive. So the X factor is you and how you relate to the moon. So we create a framework. I make some recommendations, but I always put these are some correspondences. And, I never specify what beings to call in. I say, call your guides and guardians. Call the highest version of yourself. And I intentionally leave that information out because we're all working with different lineage. And what I love about our moon is that many different people come together. And I also enjoy hosting different people who, share their magic at the new and full moon. And we get to receive another flavor, because it's like a big recipe book and everybody brings a flavor and we get to, share each other's recipes and really enjoy the beauty and we come together that way. So it's really cool. And we are moving to Patreon, but I'll have instructions about that too. If people, come on Instagram and, they're coming up for the next moon, I'm almost 100% certain we're going to wind up on Patreon for that next one, which is just logging into a different place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's really vast how many people are involved in a ceremony, because we can also reach out over the, internet to, access people who can't make it physically there. And they can prepare if they want. And then, of course, there's always going to be the people that had no idea they were going to wind up in ceremony. And they show up and they're sometimes astounded. And a lot of times the feedback I get is, wow, this is just what I needed. So, I also feel like because the moon is so intuitive, you should, the moon will call to you. And you may hear the call like 2 minutes before the ceremony, or you may do all that preparation and the suggested preparation that's on that's posted on Instagram. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So this is something that's within anybody's grasp, and they can watch it at a time other than when it's live, because these things are archived. They're available. Yeah. People can watch it afterwards. And if someone's just kind of a little loner, there are those out there that call themselves solos. What suggestions would you give people for baby steps into working with her?
And I have to say, if it weren't for my mission and vision, I'd be one of those solos because I love to talk about the moon, but I am very introverted quite naturally. And so, to do on your own, I mean, it's just a matter of, finding the right approach for you. I would say that, check out the Instagram that I post. It's a great way to begin, because all of these aspects that are suggested are great ways to dive into it a little bit. And find out more about it. And, I'd say I'm very, generic, but one thing you can do is research your lineage and where you come from and find out more about how historically, you honored and celebrated the moon. And unfortunately, a lot of that is obscured, even though it is present. If you go back and look at the anthropology and the ancient art and the mythology about the moon, you can learn a heck of a lot more than, during certain times on this planet when all of that was replaced by structured forms of worship that did not involve the moon. But we all have a relationship with the moon. It's literally in our DNA.
Well, if you're on social media at all, anytime there is a full moon that is particularly large, social media is flooded with photographs. as if people have never seen a full moon before. And it's Cosmos Moon, Bella Luna, Bella Luna. And there's something about it that just stops you.
Yeah. I agree. And actually one of the most powerful things I should mention, I don't know why I left it out, is just go under the moon. Just go outside. And if you can't get outside for some reason, look out your window and quiet your mind and get really still and just connect with that energy. Connect with that energy. And that's a great way to start working with it's the simplest way to start working with the moon.
Now, here's a strange question. Is there a moon that is a particular favorite of yours?
Oh, gosh. It's a great question. And I would say, and maybe this is just because of the energy of this particular moon, but I would say I like it when the new moon is in Taurus, and I also like it when the full moon is in Scorpio, and they both occur in May. And neither one are really astrologically connected to me at all, but there is something about May, because of my Wiccan background, right? That's Beltane, and it's a time where the Lord and Lady come together, and there's a lot of celebration being done because, of course, we're greeting, in a lot of traditions it was summertime. It's the first day of summer is Beltane. It's one of our high holidays in Wicca, and that's when the moon, the new or the full moon, fall in May. It's a beautiful celebration, and there's also usually a wee bit of chaos. And I'm not saying I enjoy chaos all the time, but I think when chaos is an ingredient in a ceremony, it causes us to grow and change very quickly. Like, you don't want to necessarily live in a state of chaos. But what I find on Beltane and right around that time, which is, May 1st, if we do a moon ceremony right around that day, we'll usually have some unexpected thing happen that creates a hint at what is to come, what we really need to work on, how far it reminds us how far we've come, that kind of thing. So I love the moon, the May moon. That's my favorite, I would say.
That makes sense with the flowers especially, and how it's so earth oriented. And so I'm thinking of two things that I witnessed at the May ceremonies, or at least one of the, at the May ceremony and at Lunar Fair. You did actually have the physical representation of the Lord and Lady. What can you tell people what that is?
Yes, that's a part, a lot of, with the Celtic work that I do and Wicca, we believe that, there is this energy of the Lord and Lady everywhere. We could say the God and Goddess, and the Lord and Lady, they are, representations of nature, but also the male and female energies. And of course, Beltane is a celebration of sensuality, sexuality, we associate it with the great rite. And if you think about it, all creation is connected to these polarities of male and female energies coming together to create something. So, it's a very, they're very beautiful. We honor them actually always, but they really come out to play and to interact and make love, in May. So it's a very passionate and loving energy. And so we've had a Lord and Lady the past couple Beltanes, and they've done beautifully and exemplifying that. But we always have the Lord and Lady present on our altar, and we always represent them when we're setting the energies publicly and privately, because we can also say they're the God and Goddess. And, different phases of the seasons, they're in different phases of their relationship to each other. So sometimes it's mother and son. Sometimes it's, lovers. And, it's all these different phases based on the season we're in. because we can say we can also, if we want to look at it from a cosmic perspective, there's the sun and the moon as well.
That's what I was thinking. So, but I had not thought of the mother and son. That's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, well, this is the season of mother and son, right? So the son is hidden inside of the mother.
Yes. Okay. That's a little symbolic. Got it. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So is there a challenge, or is it the same pretty much in devising a ceremony that you and your coven alone are going to be part of, and something where there will be people? I mean, how has broadcasting, that's what I'm getting at, how has broadcasting your ceremony online had an impact on the way that you actually conduct them?
Well,
Anything?
I think the coven has been challenged. I think my coven has shifted tremendously, because originally we were in people's backyards, or, we would do ceremony, but not at the level of numbers of people that we have now than before. So it's a little bit more, of an experience when we're out in the public. So in that way, it's changed a lot. But I feel like I can say personally for me, I've grown tremendously having the opportunity to honor the moon every 2 weeks. I can't even tell you how many aha moments I've had as a result of consciously connecting that often. Because even as a high priestess, we usually work in a solar fashion, which means we're working with the 8 sabbats. Which are the 8 solar movements of the as time moves, the sun moves. We're focused on the sun. Being a lunar coven is really what happened. It shifted our way of focus. And I think for everyone, the challenge has been to be in front of a crowd of people, but they're all like, my coven is amazing. They're all super helpful and, great about that. They actually are incredibly beautiful in the way that they handle things and the way they just pitch in to help, which is, when you're in a coven, that's what you do. It's really not that glamorous all the time. When you're in a coven, you do whatever needs to be done. And so I would say for me personally, the challenge is my intuition works in a very lunar way. So sometimes I don't know what we're going to do until like 2 days before. And if I've got people helping with the ceremony, I'm not able to really give them much to, think about or contemplate until I know what we're supposed to be contemplating. So that, that part is, it can be a little bit of a challenge, but, to me, it's also part of that idea that it's very creative. It's an art. It's an art we are expressing, intuitively, all of us.
Even preparing even 2 days in advance is so much more than what's in my background. I was with a group of women that our stated method was, we're making it up as we go along. But when you've got a group of people out there, kind of like, it's not that they're consumers, but when you have a group of people who are looking to you to be the one that is setting the structure, it makes sense that you actually think through the structure.
Which is maybe why my moon is in Capricorn, because, there's that component that is, I think when you're working in that level, yes, always. Yeah. It's like, here's what I would compare it to. Not a perfect comparison, but it's like a piece of music. And, there's an element of, when you're putting on a concert, you got to know the musical notes and, the basic foundation. And then you get up and you perform that concert, and there's going to be like a whole new series of melodies and riffs that happen when you have like the special guest, which is the moon, and the other special guests, which are the people that come and show up. All of that, it creates, something that goes to another level as a result of that interplay between what we've created and what shows up on the day of. There's both for our lunar fair ceremonies, especially.
That's a very, very evocative way of putting it, and I can reflect back that yes, that's the way it feels That is the way it feels.
Yeah.
Well, we have just a tiny bit of time left. Is there anything you're working on these days you want to talk about, or?
Oh, sure. I have a couple of things coming up. It just so happens that on Thursday, I'll be at the White Rabbit in Montclair, New Jersey. I have on my story on Instagram, or I'm going to put it up. I don't know if I put it up yet. And I'll be doing a class on angels, and I'll be calculating your numerology and your, connection to the angels of the Tree of Life. And then, of course, I'm still going to be on Patreon every 2 weeks doing lunar ceremony, thanks to Lunar Fair and the fact that they never let that torch go down throughout the year. I'm continually doing that. And then I'm going to be doing some higher level training in January, which I will, keep people informed once I actually set a physical date. I'm about to set the date. I want to do it before Mercury goes retrograde, even though we're in the shadow. So I've got some training going on. And I'm also going to be doing an earth magic class as well. That's working with the herbs. And that is, looks like that's going to happen in February. So I got things going on pretty regularly. And if you reach out to me, I will, give details on my Instagram. That you can get me that way, or on my website, lilithcircleoflight.com.
And Lilith is spelled with how many L's?
Lilith. So it's 2 L's.
Okay, yeah, but okay, right. Not 3, not 2 in the middle.
Yes, yes.
And what else? So if people go to that, they'll find out about your training, but what else will they find if they go there?
Well, they're just going to really find my my background on there, and they're going to find a little bit about the coven and, whatever else I happen to have on there. I'll be very honest with you. I'm not a technology witch. So there's not a lot you'll find except how to reach me and, reach me directly to find out more. I'm mostly active on Instagram, and the website's going to get updated. But I will be honest and probably say it's not going to be for about another month before we're going to see anything more than that. And in the meantime, I'm going to be super active on Lunar Fair's Patreon because I'm going to be contributing to the zine that they have. So I encourage you to check out the Lunar Fair Instagram and my Instagram. And if you're not on Instagram, then go on the website and email me, and I'll give you other ways we can get in touch and connect.
And Lunar Fair is spelled with an E at the end of fair, just like there is an E at the end of queen.
Yes, exactly.
It's a stylistic decision.
Yes, it is. The Lunar Chicks and Tiffany, who I've known for many years, she's super duper creative and incredible at her ability to write and to create and to put this event together. I'm focused on the ceremony. Her and the Lunar Chicks are focused on everything else, which to me is like amazing what they do.
Wrangling chaos is my experience of what they do.
Exactly.
Right. Well, thank you so much. I knew that there would be fascinating things to talk about with you, and I really appreciate your time. And I hope people will check out Lorraine's Instagram. It's at Lunar Queen with an E at the end of Queen, and it's also in the show notes if you look. That is the easiest way to find her. Lunar Fair also, LUNARFAIRE, also on Instagram, and lunarfair.com is mostly about the fair itself. So these are ways to be able to piggyback at a distance, whether you're anywhere near this creative chaos or not. You can take part in it. And right. Well, I have the feeling that this particular Mercury retrograde will not be so horrible for you, and I hope you have a wonderful end of the year, as I wish for everyone else. We'll actually be talking about next year on my next episode with a favorite returning guest, Donna Woodwell, my fellow astrologer, polyhyphenate. And so people do show up for that. Donna and I are also going to be presenting our annual discussion of what's coming up in 2024. It will be early in January, and we will have an actual place you can go to get information and sign up. There's a date and a time, but I'm going to wait until there's actually a live link to send people to it. So remember that my forecasts are at times for every month, new moon, and full moon, and they are also at my site, where you can also get my weekly podcast, Spoken, now with transcription by demand, empowermentunlimited.net. And just one final plug, my latest book is out, Confessions of a Third-Rate Goddess, Traipsing Through a World Gone Weird. It is not about astrology, although there are sections in it that do touch on what you might consider the conscious living community, including behind the scenes working at the largest Renaissance festival in the country as a soothsayer when there was much unrest in the kingdom, let's just put it that way, and managing a book tour event for a major figure. So thanks, everyone. Oh, and there's information. Thank you. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. Everyone be safe. Bye.
Bye-bye.